Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to start with our summer 2021 COVID-19 data. At the time of reporting, we had 2 active positive cases in the schools, 1 in Whitcomb, 1 in Jarrick. The number of cases in the community had plummeted all the way down to 5 at the time of the last reporting, and all of the metrics have significantly decreased over time. For my second item, I just wanted to give you a copy of the letter I sent to the faculty and staff. I'm not going to read the entire letter, but I did want to give you a copy of it. I did edit it slightly. I had some extra time the other day. I added a little bit more, but you should have been copied on that. I sent that out, I believe, Friday afternoon. For my third item, I just want to give an update to the school committee. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has released additional guidance for mask wearing. I did provide the link. And in the guidance, the recommendation for summer school programs is to maintain and follow the health and safety guidelines that are in place right now. Since we have been communicating this as the plan, I don't really see a reason to deviate it from the moment, especially since we've obviously communicated masks will be an expectation through the summer term. For the fall, initial guidance from the DESE is that masks will not be a requirement for school regardless of vaccination status. As the public health data continues to improve, all of the safety protocols we've implemented this school year will be released and will no longer be in effect for next school year. As always, time and data will determine the next steps. My fourth item, I would like the school committee to give me some feedback on. I would like to offer a date of August 17th, 2021 for a school committee workshop and for the school committee to have a training with Dr. Khalees Warnham. Even if we can't have the training that day, it would be helpful for me to schedule the workshop with the school committee. I would ask for a workshop from 1 to 4 p.m. and then a training from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. The purposes of the meeting would be to discuss our continued working relationship, review academic data, review district goals for FY22, and to gather feedback from the members on the upcoming strategy for improvement as we are going to be reworking that now that we've made some significant progress. And my fifth and final item is I had Ms. Sibilio prepare a copy of all of the gifts and grants that we included to this report. And Mr. Mayor, if you will, I'd just like to get some feedback on the members on whether August 17th would be an okay date for a workshop or if we have to reschedule that.
What's the flavor?
I am seeing thumbs up, and thumbs up. Okay, I will schedule that, and I will send out a reminder. And we are working on having Dr. Warnham there for the second half. I don't have it in stone yet, but I'm working very hard towards that, and I'm sure we can find a way to make that happen. So thank you to the committee for that, and if there are any questions I can answer.
Any questions from the committee? Any questions from the committee? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Diaz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is tonight's update from Finance and Operations. This is the last time I report this number to you, I promise. I'm very proud to report that since 2 Marches ago, the meals program served 380,000 remote meals during the pandemic. So very, very proud of that number. I want to acknowledge and express my gratitude to all of the employees who made this possible, especially the food service staff and the bus drivers who were instrumental. If families wish to continue participating in the programs during the summer, there are multiple options for them to do so. Marlborough High and Richard will be open sites on Mondays and Thursdays from 9 a.m. through 11:30 a.m. And you can pick up meals there starting June 28th through August 23rd. We also released a survey. We have a list of folks who we are delivering meals to. There's about 40 families that we're doing deliveries to, as well as we have partnerships with the Boys and Girls, Cottage Daycare, and the Holy Trinity Church to deliver some meals to them as well, also on Mondays and Thursdays through August 23rd. And then lastly, all of the students participating in any in-person summer program will receive breakfast and lunch at the schools. As always, the meals in Marlborough continue to be included, and we really would appreciate everyone's participation in our programs. And then lastly, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to present a report to the committee on the federal relief funds that were made available to the school department. The report is attached to my report here, and it shows the program, the budgeted amounts on what we intend to spend the money on, what has actually already been spent, and then the remaining balances on those opportunities. And that's all. Happy to answer any questions on these.
Question from the committee, Mrs. Bodenhenger.
Thank you. In terms of the meals, so after the summer, maybe we can get a report, one more report, just so we know about how many meals we did give out over the summer. That would be helpful.
Yeah.
And also, like on those Mondays and Thursdays, can families get numerous meals to cover them for those other days?
On Mondays, we're doing 3 meals per person that shows up, and then also on Thursday.
Okay.
And again, just, no restrictions. If you come in, you have one person picking up for 5 people, no problem.
Perfect, thank you. And thank you for the report on the different ESSER grants and the explanations, and because, we look at these numbers all the time and it's confusing for us, so I thought that it was really helpful information, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Ms. Matthews.
I echo the sentiment and thank you for all the hard work that was done this entire year with the meals and continues on. And hopefully we see a nice bump in the fall when everybody's back 100% and participating. One thing that you didn't put in there, and I hate to ask a question without warning you ahead of time, but transportation, was there a good response on the survey for transportation?
There was a good response, and we also have enough data where we can start reaching out to folks who we know usually rides but has not yet responded. And now that we have Steve Phelan, transportation coordinator, he has the capacity to start reaching out and saying, hey, you didn't respond, are you interested in transportation? And we actually, Steve has implemented our own routing software, and we know based on data that exists already to us, we have a dry run on the high school routes for next year. So that process is going well.
Great.
So I don't
Terrific.
have this.
I didn't want to leave you hanging
No,
and
no
not,
problem.
and if we needed to get the word out to parents.
Yeah, we have enough data for now that we can start our work, and then the remaining data that we need, we'll just reach out individually to parents and make sure that we have accurate information for them.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions from the committee? Thank you very much. Ms. O'Brien.
Good evening. First, I'd like to report on the MPS summer programs for the 2021 school year. 2021 summer. Assistant Superintendent Mary Murphy, EL Director Lynn Medeu, and I have spent the spring planning for summer programming for our students. Special Education, EL, Title I, Credit Recovery, and Camp Invention programs will be running this summer throughout July and the first week of August. Most of the programs will be in person, with some limited remote instruction also being provided. While participation is still in the process of being confirmed, we expect approximately 400 to 500 students who will join us this summer. Programs will be located at ECC, Goodnow Elementary, and MHS. Specific dates, times, and locations and grade levels for the programs being offered are included in the packet for your review. After the summer and for our first school committee meetings in September, we will provide data on the actual number of participants. I also wanted to provide information on the METIS program. One of the district's strategies for improvement priorities is to identify and implement a menu of non-traditional academic opportunities for at-risk students to successfully graduate high school. One target group of at-risk students that was identified is our overage and undercredited EL students who typically transfer to our district during high school, often from other countries. Lynn Medeu will report on the work that was done last spring in consultation with DESE on setting up the evening program that was implemented this school year, and she will also highlight the students who are part of the METIS program's inaugural year. I'd like to invite Lynn up.
Hello, and thank you very much for having me tonight. And Doug Diaz will be my screen advancer, and I know he'll do a wonderful job.
I will try.
And I also gave you all a handout because my slides, by purpose, do not have a lot of text. And so I wanted to make sure you didn't need to write copious notes as you were listening, if that's your thing. So I wanted to make sure you had all the data and the numbers available to you right in front of you as well. So I need to start by thanking Superintendent Bergeron for his support every step, especially this year. From making sure we actually started this program this year. Over the summer, middle of a pandemic, there was definitely a discussion of, is this the year to start? And I'm so thankful that we pushed through and did. Throughout the year, listening to the students and their needs and able to turn on a dime if we had to change something was unbelievably helpful. And also when we needed to expand the program 6 weeks in, and it almost doubled in size right then, always willing to hear and respond, which is wonderful. And then we also added positions mid-year. So I'm so thankful to your support for that. So in this presentation, I have incorporated some student voices for you because it is they who really matter. And I invited some to join me this evening, but with the rain, since most of them would be walking here, I told them to hold off and perhaps that we would invite them back to celebrate their successes next year and not to come out in the rain. So here on the first slide, you do get to see some of these amazing students. The word metas means goals in both Spanish and Portuguese, but we have made it in Marlborough stand for Marlborough Evening Teams Accelerated Studies. And as Jody O'Brien mentioned, it is a program focused on providing overaged and undercredited students an accelerated pathway to graduation and diploma attainment. So this year was our first year, and Metas had a staff of 7. I was honored to be its first director. That was very exciting and definitely the high point of my year. Don't tell my family I said that. We had 3 teachers also involved in it, 1 para-educator to help support a student who had an IEP. We hired mid-year, as I mentioned, an ELA MCAS tutor to help the students prepare for that test that they took in the spring. And then we had our guidance counselor who did office hours with the students every month to talk about college and career planning, and also just to check in and make sure they had any and all supports they needed. The entire process of Metas started over 3 years ago with a very dedicated group of Marlborough High School admin and staff that started meeting and trying to figure out what we could possibly offer students who just weren't being successful in the confines of our program. We were able to do a lot of research. We met quite often. We even did some site visits. We went to Salem, Worcester, and Brockton. And once we got a pretty good idea of what might work, what we wanted here, we then started the process with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. They have a process for new EL programs, which this wasn't exactly, but they really wanted to be part of it because they too are trying to find what might work for this demographic. So that started with an initial proposal back in November of 2019. Then they all came out to meet with us in 2020 to give us some feedback and help us out with a bit of our plan, which was extremely helpful. And then also in 2020, I started meeting with a group of targeted students, who some of them are actually Metas students this year, to ask them their ideas and opinions on what might work and what they would like to see happen. I'm so glad we did that because we were going to wait for the spring, and then we all know what happened. So when students register for high school, if they don't have enough credits, that regardless of their age, they are put into 9th grade. That's just how the credit-based system works. And so these older students who find themselves new potentially to the country, definitely to Marlborough, who might not have the credits, find themselves in classes with 9th graders. Not a large problem always, but then sometimes they find themselves disengaged or frustrated trying to connect with their fellow students who might be 4 or 5 years younger than them. And certainly sometimes also struggling with being treated like a much younger student. Many of these students have been very independent for a year or 2 years, working, helping provide for their family. So even that transition back to school can be difficult for these older students. And so previously, so you can switch. Previously, this subset of students only had that one option, just a 4-year credit-based program that we would offer at Marlborough High School. A lot of these students also, not all of them, could be identified as SLIFE, and that means they're students with limited or interrupted formal education. And this underschooled group is most at risk for academic failure, and they're also one of the groups that has the highest dropout rate. The first student you're going to meet, and this is the video you can't hear so well, and I'm heartbroken about that, but the first METAS student I want you to hear from is Junior Diaz Kosohe, who joined METAS in September. And Junior in this video is speaking in Spanish anyhow, so luckily we have the translation next to it at any rate. So.
Tenía metas porque para mí era un poco difícil asistir a clases regulares en la mañana. Venir todos los días era muy difícil para mí, ya que pues, pasaba momentos de necesidad, tenía que trabajar y eso me impedía venir. Pero cuando surgió la oportunidad de abrir un programa en la tarde, pues bueno, yo dije que era una excelente idea para poder asistir, ya que solo se deriva de 2 días y esos 2 días para mí están perfectos, ya que dispongo del tiempo para poder venir. Y ha sido, no sé, una experiencia favorable para mí.
Junior, to me, is the epitome of why this is a great program. He would wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning to go to his job, where he would work until he would get out. He would rush to get out as soon as he could, go home and shower, because you don't go anywhere unless you showered, and he would probably make it to class somewhere around 5 o'clock. Never missed a day. He'd miss an hour every day, but that was because of work. And he was there every day and worked extremely hard. And he's a very motivated student. So during that registration process, when we have that new student, if it is determined by the registrar that we're looking at a possible candidate for METAS, it's mentioned to the family, and if the family is interested, then an appointment is set up this year with myself, and next year it would be with the director of Alt Ed, to have a meeting with that family and a translator if necessary to talk about the high school options for that student. There is both options available. It is never, oh, you're older, so therefore you must. It is an option. So during the meeting, the director would outline the 2 programs. I like that the day program and the evening program is how I refer to them, and the pros and cons of both of them so that the family can make an informed decision on what works best for their student. If the student does choose METAS and then decides it's not the best for them, there's multiple on and off ramps. The student can go back into the day program, and we make sure those credits transfer. We don't want to set a child even further back because they tried something different. This is Caterine Alvarez Moran. She joined METAS in March, and she's just going to tell us why METAS was a good idea for her.
METAS was good for me because I can help my mom to pay rent. And I can pass time with her, and I work with her in the morning. So when I have school, I can pass time with her and my family. So when I don't have school, I have a free afternoon, so I can pass time with my family.
So our goal for all these students is graduation. In order to graduate, the students must pass any required MCAS tests. So let's say that a student starts with us and actually does that in a year, then we could graduate them in a year. That's probably not very likely, for most students. So they would come back for a second year, and if need be, third. This is where I like to say it's our first year, and we're seeing how we do. I'm very excited to see how the students did this spring when they took the MCAS, because I do think we have some students who really might have a chance to be our first early graduates. And I want to introduce you to one of them, not to give too many high expectations for Gabriel, but he's certainly hoping he graduates. Gabriel D'Souza joined us in December. He is anxiously awaiting his MCAS scores. He's very motivated, and I certainly hope that he is here to talk about his graduation soon. But this is why he was good for him.
That's easy for me because I have to decide between continue my work or study. With this program, I can do both.
He's a man of few words, but many talents. Next slide. So here's some general information about METAS. It was located at the high school this year. Next year it'll be in the beautiful Hildreth building, which we're very excited about. It's on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and the hours are 4 to 9, and we do have bus transportation for all the students in the program, and we do serve dinner to all the students in the program as well. Based off of intake assessments, these students are placed in English, math, and science classes. And around January, we also started to have specialized intervention blocks that were focused on speaking, reading, writing, and MCAS prep to make sure we're meeting all of these students right where they are and working from there. And classes are limited to 15 students. This year, our goal was to start with one cohort, which is 14 students, which is exactly what we did. We had to create a second cohort by October because we found out that Lynn Medalliou is incapable of saying no to a student who says, please, I want to come back to school. And as I mentioned, our lovely superintendent was always there for us. A lot of these added students had a slightly higher EL proficiency than that first group. And they were students that were really struggling with remote learning and or attendance during this absolutely insane year. And Metas ended the year, started at 14, ended with 29 students, 3 of whom graduated with our class of 2021 due to being 12th graders and meeting all of our graduation requirements. So we were very excited about that. So how will we measure success? On the screen is what we'll be looking at as this year's MCAS scores come in and what we'll be looking at in the future. This year we measured success a little differently. We measured it on the level of engagement that we had in those students every single night. We measured it by the attendance rate, which was not perfect, but very good, especially considering most of these students had had attendance issues due to work or anything else in the past. And we also measured our success this year by how many students we were able to absorb who were struggling and who came back and then attended. The unbelievably motivated group of students. So I want you to hear from 2 students just talking about some of their plans after they graduate. So here is Junior again.
Todavía no tengo muy claro, pero bueno, siempre me ha llamado la atención, pues, ser abogado, y porque, bueno, me gusta y además me han inspirado desde pequeño. Entonces, no sé si pueda cumplirlo o tal vez cambie. Tengo mucho tiempo para pensar que de verdad quiero ser eso o otra.
The next slide, we'll hear from Katerina again, who, when I asked her what she wanted to do during graduation, her expression to me captures exactly how so many high school students feel when they think of graduation.
I don't know, because I want to learn a lot, and I really want to do a lot.
The last student I want to introduce you to is Anderson Perez Gonzalez, who joined Metas in February from the day program. And he's just going to let us know what he likes about Metas.
I like this program because it's a good change for continuous study, and I have a better chance to graduate.
And just imagine, most of these students have been speaking English less than a year, so I'm pretty impressed by them. And he talks about how much he liked it, and there are others who liked it and are looking at this program. We've had Milford reach out. I met with a group from their school, including their superintendent, because they're looking to set up a similar program. They had hoped to come in the spring, but due to our MCAS schedule, we weren't able to make that happen. So hopefully we'll have them out in the fall, because anytime we can grow something that's hopefully great and working, I would love to be part of that. Districts statewide are struggling with how to support and meet the needs of this demographic of students and help them achieve their goals, their metas. And so I'm going to let Anderson sign us out a bit with a thank you.
Y gracias a y gracias a los maestros que ellos me han ayudado a continuar y a enseñar todas las cosas sobre el lenguaje.
I want to echo Anderson in thanking the teachers of this program, Cosmo Basaza, Carrie Doucette, Laura Lyons, and Kelly Barth. Without them, None of this that we talked about would have been possible this evening. And they're all returning to meet us in the fall. So we get to hit the ground running. So excited about that. And of course, I can't forget our guidance counselor, Samantha Wheeler. So thank you so much for having us. And I can't wait until you're all presented with our amazing 2022 Maythus graduates. Thank you.
Questions from the committee? Any questions from the committee? Ms. Boden-Henninger.
This isn't necessarily for Lynn, it's more for superintendent, but is there, I mean, obviously it's only year one, we have a ways to go as we build this program, but is there an opportunity for a school choice aspect to this where we could offer it to students from other districts?
Potentially in the future, we could look at a program like that to be able to tuition in students for a program like this. It's something that we probably would have interest in, and it might be something collaboratively we might be able to assist with for the entire region.
That's great. Yeah. Thank you, Lynn. This is, I can't talk because I get really emotional about this.
I'm glad it's not just me because I'm made fun of all the time. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great work, great work.
Exciting. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, Lynn.
Motion on the May 25th, 2021.
Motion to approve.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Entertain a motion on the June 8th minutes.
Motion to approve.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Public participation. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For tonight's portion of the public participation of the meeting, members of the public may provide comment by emailing the superintendent at superintendent@mps-edu.org before 4 p.m. on the above date, or by dialing 774-243-0611 and the conference ID 322-648-655#. And Mr. Mayor, I did not have any comment to share with the committee at time of press, if you will.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any further public participation?
We have no callers at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Action items. Ratification of memorandum of understanding with the school committee and the behavior technicians.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to have a public vote of ratification of our tentative agreement, which we met in executive session earlier this evening and unanimously voted in favor. And I would like to make a motion now to ratify it publicly.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Ratification of school committee and MEA contract.
Again, we met in executive session and ratified the 3-year tentative agreement with the Marlborough Educators Association. And I would like to make a motion to approve it.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Adjustment of school hours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We would like to propose to the school committee to adjust the school hours, that Marlborough High School will begin at 8 a.m. for students and will end at 2:35 p.m. Whitcomb Middle School will stay the same, no change. The elementary schools will be from 9 a.m. to 3:15 p.m. and the Early Childhood Center will return to the pre-COVID schedule next year.
Motion to approve.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Mr. Superintendent, just to clarify, these are our new normal school hours.
That is correct, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
We will communicate this out to parent, I'm sorry, we didn't vote yet, there was no
Nope.
vote. Sorry, I'm too far ahead of it.
I made a motion.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carries.
We'll be happy to
Mr.
communicate that.
Superintendent, would you like to make a comment?
We will communicate that out effectively as soon as we possibly can.
Thank you very much. Payment to non-affiliated staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we have wrapped up 5 bargaining agreements over the past 3 meetings, I'm sorry, we did want to bring forward that the FY22 budget did assume a 0% COLA increase in FY22 for affiliated and non-affiliated staff, except for custodial and food service, who already had contracts ratified in FY20. So we are looking to make a one-time non-pensionable payment of 2% to the non-affiliated staff named on the attached list. And this is similar to all of the other bargaining agreements that we have brought forward to the committee over the past 3 meetings. And my request is that the school committee approve a 2% payment to the non-affiliated staff on the attached list.
Motion to approve.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. And we can further this conversation tomorrow, Mr. Superintendent. That's great. Is this going to be in, are you going to get it in June, or?
It's going to be on the first payroll in July, but we can charge it back to the fiscal year, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Thank you. Virtual school committee meeting, I'm sorry, FY21 budget transfers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a few transfers for the committee's consideration tonight. District-wide transfers. We are seeking to transfer $33,875 from the salary reserve line to offset overages in the following accounts: mileage, district-wide custodian, HR contractor services, tuition reimbursement, cell phones, copier, memberships, and educational software costs. In special education, we're looking to make a transfer of $15,000 utilizing the private day account due to an impending circuit breaker offset transfer to offset overages in the tuition public day, testing, and home services account. Again, happy, I know this is a lot of transfers, happy to answer any questions on these.
Motion to approve the transfers as requested.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
Virtual school committee meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the last meeting, there was a discussion about the school committee's ability to deliberate the future of virtual meetings and public participation for the Marlborough School Committee. And I put this on the agenda so that the school committee can deliberate about the future of meetings. Our next scheduled meeting, I believe, is August 24th, 2021.
Discussion. Motion.
A discussion.
Yep.
I don't want to make a motion just yet. Despite you saying the legislature wasn't going to do anything in a timely manner, they did.
Yep, 8:30, at the night that they had to do it.
But it was retro, too. It was retro, so you could have had your...
Retro.
Yes, it was. It covered meetings that were held on the 15th.
Well, it was 8:30 at night. How many meetings started?
Well, no, but you had said you didn't think it was going to happen at all summer, whatever. But the point...
I'll predict they don't have a budget by next Thursday, too.
No, they're not going to have a budget. That we already know.
We pretty much know.
But I'm very torn. I think my personal opinion is that we should go back to the way it was. We should set our tables the way they were. We should perform our meetings, have public participation, attendees in person. I do think, I'm torn between, we've made a commitment to be here as members, but there are circumstances, and now that since there is the ability to be able to at least participate, I'd like to see that if needed. But I don't know if that's a compromise or not. I don't want to see it as a regularity, but it happens. I went through it 2 years ago where I would have,
And the world didn't come to an end with the school committee.
No, I got in my car and came back for each of those meetings rather than, so I spent 10 hours away from the situation, but
that was a decision.
That I made. I understand that, but I'm just saying, since we have also made these life adjustments, so that's my opinion. So And you're right, we could go on without it too.
Yep. Other comments, other questions? Ms. Hennessy?
So I'm virtual tonight, obviously, and I think it's something that is a great option that we learned something about due to a bad situation. Do I think it should be with any form of regularity? No, because I think there's a real purpose behind having us all there together to be able to communicate and collaborate together. But I do think that it does serve a purpose to have it available, I think, as Ms. Matthews was, mentioning, for, kind of special circumstances. And I think it takes the onus of, if we have a situation where we may need it, then we talk with our team and we, explain the situation so that a team's calling can be available. Does it have to happen all the time? I don't think so, and nor do I think it should. I think it's just helpful to have, so at minimum, like my situation tonight, at minimum I can somewhat participate. Do I expect to have a huge amount of activity? No, but it does allow me to keep very current as opposed to waiting to see a tape sometime. So there's my 2 cents. Thank you.
First of all, virtual is virtual. So it doesn't mean the school committee, if needed, can be virtual. It means everything is virtual. The people that are doing presentations, the public will be calling in virtually. We'll have the same sound issues we've had for the last over a year now. We'll have that same freezing of the screens that we've had over the last year now. We'll be required to have the roll call votes as we have for the last year now. And this will be the only committee in the entire city doing it. And I just think it's a bad precedent that this school, I understand there's situations that come up, and we've all missed meetings usually for very, very good reasons, because no one here just doesn't show up, which is great. But the committee continues and the work continues. And I just think it's going to turn in sometimes to be a convenience more than a necessity because of an emergency. And again, who's to decide that but the individual? But again, it's not about a school committee thing. It's about the meeting thing. It's the public and the presentations and everyone else. It just, I think it's a bad precedent, and the legislature did it because they don't want to go back to work. Let's face it, half the state still isn't working. Try to get a hold of some of those agencies. Try to get answers from some of those agencies. It's very frustrating, but that's my 2 cents. And like I said, it's, keep in mind, it's for everything we do in the committee. And again, we are not set up to do virtual meetings. It's not one of those high-tech companies where you're sitting across from a screen and it's very clear and you can hear everything. I mean, it's obviously, a lot different.
Can I just ask for clarification when you say that it's all or nothing? Well, obviously what we're talking about is only for the time that this is available, which is till next April. 2022. And then it would have to end because the city has not adopted virtual meetings. But I don't see why we couldn't put parameters around participation of a member for an emergency situation, as opposed to, the way you're saying it is like we'd always have to have it open to teams for anybody and participation that way. And I don't believe it's we pick and choose what parts of it we want. Do you know any more on that, Mr. Superintendent?
No. If you don't mind, I did briefly reach out to council because I was struggling with the issue of having virtual participation of a member, but than not allowing virtual participation of the public. And although, and I talked to Peter Sumners, who works in our law office, and Peter concurred with my struggle. He couldn't point to a specific case law, he couldn't point to anything. He just said it creates a system where it's almost like a barrier. So if you're saying that a member can participate virtually, you have to allow participation virtually from the audience as well. And I agreed with the sentiment that he said, because if we're going to allow it for one party, you should allow it for the other. And public participation virtually hasn't, speaking for Marlborough and our experience only here, it has not been a boon to public participation. It hasn't been something that has increased public participation. So in my discussion with Peter, my concern was that if we allow a member to participate virtually, in my mind, you have to allow virtual participation from the public, because you don't want to have a system where someone can do it but someone else can't. And it was just about fairness.
Ms. Bodenhender?
Okay, so I don't think that that's accurate, personally. So to me, this is the difference between what pre-COVID was referred to as remote participation of a public body versus a virtual meeting. And I think, at least in my conversations with most people, I think most of us are done with the virtual meeting. I mean, I am not in favor of the full teams and the remote, all that business. That, if we are able to be back in the meeting, then I personally think our meeting should be back in this room. If people want to speak to us, they should come down and speak to us. But prior to COVID, there was always an option, if cities chose to adopt it, around remote participation. And I think that the way the legislature has continued this, it opens us up to be able to do remote participation without having to have the public be able to access that remote participation, because the rules say that you have to allow the public the access to see what's going on, not necessarily to participate remotely. And we have always given the public the ability to see what's going on, because we're streamed live on live TV. And I, personally, years ago, I remember a situation where we were deliberating something, you know exactly what I'm gonna say, and somebody who was watching it at home was furious and got in their car and drove down here to talk to us about it. Have at it. That's why we're here. That's why it's being streamed live. And if people want to come and engage with us, they have every right and, I think, responsibility as a citizen in this community to come and make their voices heard. But I think that's very different from remote participation, and I think that that's what Mrs. Matthews and Mrs. Hennessy are talking about, and that's what I'm talking about. And I think we can still do that.
If you want to, it sounds like you want to mix and match and blend the old rules with the new rules.
Well, it sounds like it needs clarification.
That's what we said at the last meeting.
Mm-hmm. But the question that the superintendent asked council questioned the COVID rules and the COVID extension.
That's because we didn't want to spend $2,000 to get a real answer.
Yeah, can I clarify that, Mr. Mayor?
What's that?
May I clarify, Mr. Mayor? I just want to make sure I understand. I didn't ask Peter for a legal opinion.
No,
So what I was asking was I was just saying my uncomfortableness
clarity,
with one party being virtual but not allowing the other party, and does he also see that as a potential issue? And he said, yes, it could be a potential issue.
Okay.
But he didn't give me a legal opinion. I didn't ask for it in writing. What he was saying is, does it pass the test of making it available for people? And he was a little bit uncomfortable with it.
Okay, and my through the chair, my counter to that is, this is our meeting. We are an elected body, and a school committee meeting is our meeting to deal with our business. When the public comes in, it's not a two-way street. We don't have that that's not what this meeting is. When people come and they address us as a committee, they tell us what it is that they are interested in telling us. We don't deliberate on it. We take that information and then we decide what we're going to do with it. We may put it on an agenda for the future. One of us may reach out to them, whatever. We've got open meeting laws around how we conduct our business. If it's not on the agenda and we haven't changed the rules for the meeting to add something to the agenda, then we don't discuss it. I mean, for the public to be able to have a two-way access to us remotely was a special rule just because they couldn't come into this room. Their ability to speak to us will not change. And I personally think that, I mean, at least what I am interested in exploring is remote participation. I personally am not interested in continuing to have virtual meetings.
But the reason we're allowed to do the virtual meeting is because of a special rule. If we were using the old rules, we wouldn't be having this discussion, because we haven't accepted anything in the city.
Therein lies the problem.
Correct.
And that won't happen. So it's as simple as that. Mr. Caruso, your 2 cents.
It's up to a dime now.
It's up.
I tend to agree. Microphone, sorry about that. I tend to agree with Mrs. Bowden-Hedinger. I think that the way I looked at what they were saying about what would happen when the legislature worked, its magic, or whatever it did the other night, it was going to allow us to do the meeting with occasionally having a member like Mrs. Hennessy somewhere else beside this, and I don't think they were at that point considering necessarily keeping the rest of it as the type of meeting we've been having. So I think we can do it that way, under the way the legislature's changed the rules, or kept the rules. I'm not sure which one it is at this point, if they've changed them or kept them. And we're not, again, we're only talking until April. It's not, I mean, we don't know. We can't predict what anybody's life's going to be like in the next, year or so. But I don't think it's going to be the big an issue at every meeting. We're going to be dealing with this every meeting. And I think I just feel like we can do this, and we can do it the way Mrs. Bowden-Hedinger and Mrs. Matthews have already stated. I think we can do it that way. I think for now that's probably the best of both ways to make sure that we get through this next part of this readjustment back to normal life. So I'm comfortable with doing it, with being able to have the member be remote and not necessarily having to worry about participation of the public being remote at this point. So.
I didn't read the legislation because I didn't want to bother with it. But my understanding is they extended what they did. So if they extended what they did, it's all in or all out. It's not they changed they gave us the opportunity. And I don't know why the committee members, all of us, are different than the other people we have coming to the meetings. The department heads and the principals and people doing presentations. Why are they different? Why are we different? Shouldn't we all be treated the same?
No, we're the elected body.
But you're asking for people to do presentations.
They're our guests. They're not the elected officials.
Well, I don't know. I'm shocked that you think that we should be treated different than the rest.
We have a level of responsibility to be here at this meeting that is different from a guest that we invite in to give a presentation.
Well,
I mean, it's not a matter of treating people differently.
Of course we are.
Because we are different.
No, but we're asking for your participation. We're asking for the principals to come here and participate in the meeting. So it's not like, someone has an opinion they just want to express that night. It's, we're telling, as we heard tonight, with, Mr. Diaz did a presentation. Start doing it virtually. Why should he be treated differently than the committee members should? But Ms. Hennessy.
So I understand the comments that you're putting forth. I guess my thought around that would be that oftentimes I think when somebody's coming in as a guest to do a presentation, they ask, well, okay, we'd like to do it at X meeting. Can you do it at X meeting? And they say, yes, sure. So there's a plan about this certain date, right? We have every other Tuesday where we need to physically be there, right? And I would say that in many cases, if, say, Dan Riley was going to come on, June 22nd to be at a meeting, if he was not able to be there for whatever his presentation will probably move to the next time he would be able to come, as opposed to it would just be done virtually. So I think that would be the difference, is that as a guest, sometimes you can maneuver to a different timetable. As a committee member, we need to participate every other Tuesday, 100%. Well, as much as we can, and we'd like to participate 100%. And this gives us that opportunity at the moment when we have reasons that may prevent us from physically being in state. So.
And I'm just going to throw one other thing out there, Mr. Mayor.
You go right ahead.
Well, COVID's not over. We know that. And any one of us could end up in a quarantine during a time we have a meeting. What's to stop us from participating that we can't come to the meeting?
Turn around and throw it against the wall, because you're throwing stuff against the wall now.
I am. I'm bringing up another point of there's no reason why I can't participate, but I can't be in the room.
But it's not COVID. It's anything could keep you with an emergency that you couldn't be here. So forget about the COVID thing. The only reason we're here is because of the COVID thing. Otherwise, this wouldn't be a decision of this committee. So.
Okay, so then let's vote on something. Why don't we? I'll make a motion.
Well,
is there a motion?
Do we want clarification on your thoughts and legal counsel's thoughts?
I kind of feel like I need clarification, because if, like what Mr. Bergeron said, that if it's kind of like, if we open it up to members, do we have to open it up to public participation? I think we do need clarification on that.
And again, I just want to point out my conversation with Peter, I wasn't asking him to give me a legal opinion.
No,
so,
I
and I'm
understand
happy to do so at the committee's discretion. If you want to give me that direction, I can call them and give them a specific question about whether or not we can perform that function. I know the first answer I'm going to get, and the first answer I'm going to get is public participation is not legally required for a school committee. So that's the first answer I'm going to get. The second answer would be the question, if I understand it correctly from the committee, can a member participate remotely through an online service and then not have a participation available for the public through the same service? That's, if I'm hearing you correctly.
As long as there is a venue, there's still going to be a venue maintained for the public to participate live, which is they can come to the room.
As the members can.
Correct.
No, Mr. Crusoe.
Now, I'm a little confused by one of the things that brought to my mind. Prior to all of this, when that law was available that you insist will never pass into Marlborough, was there allowance in there for public participation if the member was not here?
No.
No. So we're not doing anything different than what was going to be done prior to all this happening. So I think to me, it's a moot point.
It couldn't happen then either. I mean, you're trying to mix and match the rules, as we've heard earlier.
I think you're kind of you're clouding too many, putting too many things in one basket. I think myself, Mr. Mayor.
Those are the rules. So you're trying to
the
mix.
Rules before was my point. Those weren't the rules before.
Right.
So we're going. They're basically allowing that to happen. So following those rules should be fine.
No, they're not. We're not talking about those rules. We're talking about the new rules. We're not talking about the old rules, because those aren't in place today. We're talking about the new rules, and the question is, did the legislature simply extend what they did, or did they actually make tweaks to what they did? So, and I believe they extended it, but I didn't read it, so nor do I have any intentions of reading it. I'd rather have Mike call legal counsel and get a legal opinion on what the legislature was thinking.
Is there a does it mess up our timeline if we do that? I mean, it won't affect us really until the first meeting in August.
Yeah,
So we can.
I think we would get this back relatively quickly, and I believe our first meeting is August 24th. And if everyone's okay with having a workshop on the 17th, I think you'll have the answer well before then. And then we would be posting said meeting on the 24th.
And we could take up this issue and vote on it then?
Absolutely.
Oh, on the 24th. But could we vote
Do it
on
on the
it?
17th.
Could we vote on it in a
Because
workshop
it's a
meeting? It's a
workshop
scheduled meeting.
As long as I put it on the
Put it
agenda,
on there.
and maybe I'll have to be reminded of that.
Yeah. So I think that's the way to go. I actually think what you said is accurate. I think that the legislature did just extend what we have in place. But the question is whether or not under that legislation can we do what we are asking to do, which is really more in line with remote participation of members. And if that's permissible under that law, nobody actually questioned it before because we didn't have the ability for the public to come in. But now that we do, right? Now that we do, the question is whether or not we can, as you said, pick and choose. And if we cannot, then, as far as I'm concerned, then it's a moot point for me. But I would prefer that clarification, and then we can vote at the July meeting to prepare for September.
Motion to ask the superintendent to
Meant August.
get a legal opinion for the meeting on the 17th.
Yeah, what he said, because you can't make a motion.
What's that?
You can't make a motion.
Oh, you did.
I just made that
seconded it.
motion. You seconded it, okay.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
Why do we have to take
Superintendent
that?
evaluation.
Why do we have to take up that right before the superintendent evaluation? That's, so this is actually, the agenda item is from the vice chair about the superintendent's evaluation.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. So, best laid plans. Ordinarily, we, I ask for everyone to fill out the evaluation tool, and I think what I have come to definitively realize is that 2-week turnaround time is not enough time for most members to get this task done. So.
Credits where credit's due.
He only gave half of it the first time, but you did turn it in, and I thank you for that.
When you told me to.
You did. You were the only one, though. So thank you. So what I have to present tonight is I did wrangle at least the numerical part of the report out of folks. So I am prepared to report out on that. Members do need more time to make comments. We do have a deadline of July 1st to report out the evaluation to DESE, so that's why we had to do it in short order. So I will report that out. Members will get the rest of their comments that they have to me. I will compile it, get it to the superintendent over the summer, but we'll report it out at our first meeting.
Second.
It's going to have to be the second meeting because unless we have remote participation, I am going to be out of town for the first meeting.
Is it emergency?
Sorry?
Is it emergency?
It is not an emergency, it's a planned vacation. In this case, it is convenience, in this case. Right. I was not going to be able to be present for that meeting. Okay, so on to the business at hand. So, as you all know, but for the public, the superintendent is evaluated on 2 sets of criteria. One are goals that the superintendent has set and we agreed upon at the beginning of the year that he would be working towards. There are 4 goals that we agreed upon. And then the second part are the standards that the state puts out. Each standard has, what do they call them?
Indices? No.
Indices. Indicators, that's the term. And so what I will report out is the findings on the 4 goals as well as each of the 4 standards.
Focus indicators.
Focus indicators, exactly. Thank you. Okay.
If you guys read it, you would have caught that.
Yes, yes. There was some confusion on it. The tool is not.
It's a tool.
It's a tool.
It's a real tool.
Yeah. And unfortunately,
Agreed.
and unfortunately, there is a disconnect between the order at which things are listed as well as some of the terminology in the actual report that the superintendent fills out and the blank tool that we fill out.
Which I apologize because they updated it from last year's.
And the one you gave us was the wrong one? Oh.
That's why I went back and just did it on Mike's, because I just
Which was
edited
very
it.
confusing for me, but
Sorry.
we can talk about that at a later date. Okay. So for the first, the professional practice goal, the superintendent had rated himself as some progress meeting that goal, and the committee overall agreed with that. There were 2 members that actually thought that he met that goal, but everyone else said some. So we're in agreement on some progress on professional practice goal. The student learning goal, most people agreed, significant progress, which again was what the superintendent had stated. And there were 2 district improvement goals. The first one, the superintendent had rated himself as having significant progress. The committee also, the committee disagreed and felt that that you had met that goal as a whole. 2 felt that you had exceeded the goal. And only 1 agreed with you as significant. So the committee felt that district improvement goal 1 was met. And with district improvement goal 2, the superintendent felt that he had made some progress. The committee was split. 3 said some, 3 said met, and 1 said significant. So overall, because in the tool, it lumps all the district improvement goals into 1 category, which is very confusing. Overall, the district improvement goals were met. And as for the standards, basically all 4 standards were proficient. Although in the management and operations, standard 2, 4 members voted proficient and 3 voted exemplary. So it's really more like proficient and a half. And
Scale of 4, it's a 3.5.
Right, and then overall proficiency for the summative performance is proficient. That is my report for this evening.
Thank you very much for that report. Thank you for all your work in putting that together and pulling teeth from us to get it. Acceptance of donations and gifts. HDF School to Skills Grant, MHS School Technology Grant, $13,000.
Motion to accept.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Call for Mass Civics Grant, MPS, $29,981.
Motion to approve.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Any subcommittee reports? Mrs. Matthews.
I just want to reiterate my thanks to all of unions that expeditiously came to agreements with the school committee and all the work that was put into it. I especially want to thank our teachers. We spent, well, we calculated it 20 hours in a very short time frame, and I think had very thoughtful conversations, and I look forward to the work that will be done going forward as well. And we have a few things ahead of us for everybody, but I just want to say thank you. It was, yeah, it was very good team effort on everybody's part. Thank you.
Ms. Hennessy.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that you all were aware policy had a meeting last week. We are just about finished updating all of the policies that are remaining. And then we are making a list of specific policies that pretty much need like an annual peak. So once I pull that list together, I will get that out to everyone, just so we have a running list that we can work off of. And we'll be bringing some new policies and updated policies to you all when we commence back in August. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members Forum. Ms. Matthews.
I reviewed the warrant and I signed it.
Thank you very much. Ms. Bodenhenger.
Thank you. I just wanted to add to the superintendent's evaluation that I suggest that for moving forward, that we think about doing the process a little bit earlier so that we're not caught up at the end of the year scrambling to get things done. So we can work together to come up with a plan, but even I think if the self-evaluation comes to us 2 weeks prior, that would give us a month. But we can talk about that. So that would be my 2 cents on that. And I too, as this was my first time back on negotiations during the actual negotiations, and it was, a whirlwind process over the last 6 weeks with all of the unions, but really, truly, I feel like we had good conversations, particularly with the teachers, because we used a form of negotiation that lends itself to communication. And it was great. I really, as we all know, this was a really challenging year, a year and a half, and I could not be more proud.
You did a good job. Mrs. Hennessy.
Thank you. I really just wanted to actually thank the superintendent and the negotiation subcommittee, because you all have put in lots of hours of work at the table, but behind the scenes. And I appreciate it as a collaborative committee. It's wonderful to have you all do that. And I definitely appreciate all of the time and effort it takes. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other members? Seeing none.
Happy summer.
Yeah, happy summer. Happy summer.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Thank you all very much.